It was a normal Sunday dinner, nothing special. Roast chicken, soft music playing from my mom's old speaker in the corner, the smell of garlic and butter settling into the curtains like it always had. My sister set her fork down and said it like she was commenting on the weather. "You were just a mistake we were forced to keep." She didn't whisper it. She didn't laugh after. She said it loud enough for the whole table to hear. I remember the way the overhead light reflected off the edge of my glass. I was lifting my fork at the time. It stopped halfway to my mouth. I waited for someone to soften it. A small correction. A gentle, "That's not true." My dad cleared his throat but didn't speak. My mom didn't look up from her plate. "She's right," she said quietly. The room felt smaller after that. Not louder, not chaotic, just smaller. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I didn't ask what they meant. I finished my water, I stood up. I said, "Okay." That confused them more than tears would have. "Don't be dramatic," my dad muttered. I nodded. I grabbed my coat from the hallway hook. I walked out without slamming the door. I didn't text anyone. I didn't block anyone. I just left. 3 weeks later, they hosted a family reunion. Photos filled social media, matching outfits, coordinated smiles. My mom captioned one of them, "Family is everything," with 3 heart emojis lined up like proof. There wasn't an empty chair for me. That night, my phone lit up. 15 missed calls. All from my sister Lauren. I stared at the screen, watched her name repeat itself. Then a voicemail came in. Her voice sounded different, not sharp, not confident. "Emily, please call me. It's about the house." The house. I didn't respond right away. I opened the reunion photos again instead. Everyone looked steady, comfortable, untouched. My phone buzzed again. Another message. "They're saying I signed something. I didn't understand it." I leaned back against the couch in my apartment, the place I had rented quietly after I left. Small, clean, neutral walls. The hum of the refrigerator, the only background sound. For years, I had been the one who read everything. Contracts, fine print, renewal clauses, insurance terms. They used to call it paranoia. Now my sister was calling it help. The phone rang again. This time, I answered. Her breathing was uneven. "They're saying I'm liable," she said quickly. "There's a lien. They're threatening legal action." I didn't react right away. I let her words settle. "Slow down," I said. "What did you sign?" "It was just paperwork for the reunion venue. Dad handled most of it. I just signed where he told me." Of course she did. And now they say the loan was structured under my name, that I'm personally responsible if it defaults. I closed my eyes for a second. "Did you read it?" I asked. There was a pause. "No." I thought about the dinner table. The word mistake, the way no one corrected it. "They wouldn't do that to me," she added quickly, almost to herself. "They already did," I said quietly. Silence. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop. "Forward me everything," I said. I could hear the relief in her exhale, like I had thrown her a rope. "I knew you'd help," she said softly. I didn't answer that. Helping and rescuing are 2 different things. The documents hit my inbox within minutes. Loan agreement, personal guarantee, adjustable interest clause, default triggers tied to projected event revenue that clearly hadn't been met. Lauren had signed everything. Primary borrower. My dad's name appeared only as event coordinator. No liability attached. I read every line slowly. "Emily?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "What does it say?" I leaned back in my chair. "It says you're responsible for $200,000. I heard her inhale sharply. "That's impossible." "It's not." Silence filled the line. "They tricked me?" she asked faintly. "No," I said. "You trusted them." That landed harder. "I need you to fix it," she said quickly. "You're good at this. You always are." I thought about every time I had told her to read before signing anything, every eye roll, every stop being dramatic. "You called me a mistake," I said calmly. She went quiet. That was just honest, she murmured. I didn't argue. I'll review it, I said finally. But I'm not paying it. I'm not asking for money, she said. Good, I replied. I turned back to the screen. The default window hadn't fully closed yet. There was still time. I opened a blank notepad and started outlining what I was seeing. Then, I waited. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was upset, because I was thinking. The glow of my laptop screen stayed on past midnight. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of traffic 3 floors below. I reread the agreement slowly, not looking for outrage, just structure. Loan amount, $200,000. Primary borrower, Lauren Mitchell. Personal guarantee, signed. Projected event revenue, inflated. Default trigger, tied to shortfall. My dad's name appeared only in operational roles. Event coordinator, organizer, no personal liability. Clean, intentional. I closed the document and leaned back in my chair. For most of my life, I had been the cautious one. The one who asked questions before signing apartment leases. The one who read bank terms before opening accounts. When we were younger, Lauren used to joke that I treated everything like a courtroom. Maybe I did. But I also noticed patterns. And this wasn't new. When we were kids in Columbus, my dad handled everything financial. School forms, medical billing, summer camp deposits. My mom trusted him without reviewing anything. Lauren trusted him because it was easier. I trusted no one completely. That difference used to make me the difficult one. I remembered being 16, sitting at the kitchen counter with a scholarship form. I had asked my dad why a co-signer was required for something that was technically merit-based. Stop overthinking, he'd said. Lauren had laughed. She's always suspicious. Maybe I was. But suspicion kept records straight. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from Lauren. Are you still awake? Yes, I replied. Dad says it's temporary. He says the bank just needs reassurance. I stared at that sentence. Banks don't operate on reassurance. They operate on signatures. Did you receive any of the loan funds directly? I asked. No, it all went into the reunion event account. Dad controlled it. I nodded to myself. Okay, I typed back. Don't speak to the lender again until we understand the timeline. A few minutes later she called. Am I ruined? She asked quietly. No, I said. But you're exposed. There was a difference. I opened the amortization schedule. The interest adjustment clause was aggressive, variable, triggered by default conditions that were already technically in motion. How many people actually attended? I asked. Less than projected, she said. Dad said the estimates were conservative. I almost smiled at that. Projections are rarely conservative when someone else is guaranteeing them. I opened a spreadsheet and began mapping the structure. Revenue projected. Revenue actual. Gap. Trigger window. Penalty escalation timeline. Numbers calm me. They don't lie. They don't protect feelings. They don't reinterpret history. They sit exactly where they are placed. Around 2 a.m., I made tea. Chamomile. The steam fogged my glasses for a second. Lauren stayed on the line quietly. I didn't think they'd ever put something like this under my name, she said. I didn't answer immediately. When someone handles everything for you, I said finally, you stop checking. There was a pause. Did they ever do this to you? She asked. Not like this. But I remembered smaller things. A credit card opened when I was in college for convenience. My name attached. I had caught it within weeks and closed it. It had been presented as an oversight. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. They test boundaries, I said carefully, with the person who won't push back. Lauren was quiet for a long time. I always thought you were just negative, she admitted. I'm not negative, I said. I'm precise. The difference matters. The next morning, I drafted a short list for her. Do not sign anything else. Request full transaction history from the event account. Do not discuss strategy with Dad until we review everything. I sent it without commentary. She replied with one word. Okay. Later that afternoon, she forwarded the bank's formal notice. I printed it, laid it flat on my desk. The paper felt heavier than it should have. Official letterhead, legal language, 30-day cure period. That was the key. There was still time to act before penalties compounded fully. I called her. Have they said anything about refinancing? I asked. Dad says he can refinance it under the house, she said. Whose house? I asked. Ours. I sat back. If the house was jointly owned, refinancing required both signatures. If it wasn't, that meant something else entirely. Get me the deed, I said. There was hesitation. Why? Because ownership matters. She didn't argue this time. By evening, I had copies of the deed, the event account summary, and the full loan package. I spread them across my desk in careful rows. Paper creates clarity. Ownership, solely in my parents' names. Event account, controlled by Dad. Loan, guaranteed by Lauren. A clean separation, all risk transferred downward. I leaned back and folded my hands. This wasn't panic. This was structure. And structure can be addressed. Lauren called again that night. Dad says you're overreacting, she said softly. Of course he does, I replied. He says you're making this bigger than it is. I glanced at the default clause again. No, I said calmly. He already did. Silence settled between us. Will you come with me? She asked finally. Where? To talk to them. I looked around my apartment, the light coming through the blinds, the quiet, the order I had built here. 3 weeks ago, I left without raising my voice. Now I was being invited back. I'll attend, I said. But I'm not rescuing anyone. She didn't respond right away. Okay, she said eventually. I closed my laptop. Then I waited. The next evening, I drove back to the house I had left. It was early spring in Columbus. The air was cool, the sky pale and steady. The neighborhood looked the same, lawns trimmed, porch lights on timers. Nothing about the street suggested anything was wrong. Inside, the dining room light was already on. Same table, same chairs, same place settings stacked neatly on the sideboard. Lauren was sitting upright, hands folded too tightly in her lap. My mom stood near the sink, drying a dish that was already dry. My dad leaned back in his usual chair, posture relaxed, as if this were a minor scheduling discussion. I set my bag down and took out a folder. I didn't rush. Paper has weight when you place it carefully. What's all this? My dad asked, nodding at the documents. You know what it is, I said calmly. Lauren kept her eyes on the table. My mom avoided mine. You structured the reunion loan under Lauren's name, I continued. Primary borrower, personal guarantee included. My dad sighed lightly, the way he does when he thinks someone is being unnecessarily detailed. It was efficient, he said. Her credit score is strong. Efficient, like selecting a tool. You told me it was secured by event revenue, Lauren said quietly. It was, he replied, if attendance had matched projections. They didn't, I said evenly. He shifted slightly in his chair. You're making this dramatic, he said. I opened the folder and slid one page forward. This is the projection sheet submitted to the lender, I said. 400 attendees at full ticket price. Lauren looked up. How many actually attended? I asked her. 267, she said. I nodded once. Revenue shortfall triggered the default clause tied to the variable rate adjustment. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't accuse, I just stated it. My dad leaned forward now. We'll refinance. With what? I asked calmly. The house? He hesitated. Ownership documents were already in my folder. The house is solely in your name and Mom's, I continued. Refinancing would require you to assume the liability. He didn't respond. Silence moved across the table slowly. My mom set the dish towel down. We're family, she said. We'll handle it. How? I asked gently. Legally, she handles it alone. That shifted something. Lauren's breathing grew shallow again. You said you'd back me, she said to him. He didn't answer immediately. I coordinated the event, he said instead. It benefited everyone. Liability doesn't distribute by benefit, I replied. It distributes by signature. No one interrupted that. For the first time, I could see it register on Lauren's face. The pattern. The design. You always said she was paranoid, my dad said, gesturing toward me. I'm not paranoid, I said calmly. I read. He stood up slowly, walked around the table, picked up the loan agreement as if he might find a hidden clause he had missed. There's still time, he said. The cure period hasn't expired. Yes, I said. 30 days. He glanced at me sharply. You've been calculating, he said. I didn't deny it. That was the first shift. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet recognition that I understood the system as well as he did. Maybe better. Lauren looked between us. What do I do? She asked softly. I didn't answer immediately, because this part mattered. I can review renegotiation options, I said finally. We can approach the lender before penalties escalate. Relief flickered across her face. But, I added, I'm not paying it. My mom stepped forward. You owe her. I met her eyes. I was your daughter, I said quietly. No one argued that. The room felt different now, not smaller, clearer. Dad placed the papers back on the table. You're really going to sit there and let this fall on her? He asked. I'm not letting anything fall, I said. I'm refusing to move it. Lauren wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Not dramatic, just overwhelmed. I'm sorry, she said to me. It wasn't polished. It wasn't strategic. It was tired. I believed her, but belief doesn't erase structure. Here's what happens next, I said calmly. I turned the folder toward Lauren. Step 1. You request a formal payment breakdown and confirm the exact outstanding balance with accrued adjustments. She nodded. Step 2. We draft a hardship-based restructuring proposal. Not emotional. Financial. My dad crossed his arms. Step 3, I continued. We determine whether Dad is willing to formally assume partial liability through documented agreement. The room went very quiet, because that step required something real. My dad's composure shifted, just slightly. That's unnecessary, he said. It's precise, I replied. Lauren looked at him. Will you? She asked. He didn't answer, and that was answer enough. I closed the folder. We'll meet the lender in 2 days, I said to Lauren. Bring every statement, every email. I stood up. My mom looked like she wanted to say something softer, something that might smooth it over. She didn't. As I walked toward the door, my dad spoke. You've always enjoyed proving a point. I paused. No, I said. I prefer clarity. Then I left. I didn't slam the door. I drove back to my apartment in silence, and I knew the real negotiation hadn't even started yet. Then I waited. The lender's office was in a low-glass building near downtown. Neutral carpet, filtered lighting, a faint smell of printer toner and coffee that had been sitting too long on a warming plate. Lauren sat beside me in the waiting area, holding a slim folder with both hands. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She just looked tired. That was new. When the loan officer, Mr. Patel, called us in, I let Lauren walk first. This was her signature, her name, her responsibility. We sat across from his desk. He opened the file immediately. You're aware the account is in default status pending cure, he said calmly. Yes, I replied before Lauren could fill the silence with apology. We're within the 30-day window. He nodded. Lauren glanced at me, then back at him. I didn't fully understand the structure when I signed, she said quietly. I understand, he said, but the personal guarantee is enforceable. Of course it was. I placed a printed sheet on the desk. Before we discuss enforcement, I said evenly, we'd like a full payment breakdown including principal, adjusted rate, late penalties pending, and projected escalation after the cure window. He reviewed it briefly. That can be provided, he said. And we'd also like written clarification on whether the lender relied solely on projected revenue statements provided by the event coordinator, I added. He looked up at that. You're suggesting misrepresentation. I'm requesting documentation, I said calmly. There's a difference. Lauren remained quiet. That was part of the plan. Step 1. Stop speaking emotionally. Step 2. Request documentation. Step 3. Slow the process. Mr. Patel tapped his pen lightly against the desk. The projections were part of the underwriting, he said. However, the guarantee stands regardless. I understand, I replied. We're not disputing the signature. We're evaluating structural options before escalation. He leaned back slightly. What options are you proposing? Restructuring based on verified income, I said. Adjusted repayment schedule to avoid compounding penalties. Lauren inhaled slowly, but didn't interrupt. Is the guarantor prepared to begin payments immediately? He asked. Yes, I answered before she could hesitate. Within documented capacity. He nodded again. There's a shift that happens in rooms like that. When you stop pleading and start organizing. By the end of the meeting, we had secured 3 things. A written balance confirmation. A temporary hold on penalty escalation pending review. A scheduled follow-up in 10 business days, not forgiveness, not rescue, structure. Outside, Lauren exhaled deeply. I thought they were going to threaten me, she said. They still might, I replied, but now it's on paper. Paper changes tone. We sat in her car for a moment before driving off. I never realized how quickly things can move once you sign something, she said quietly. They don't move quickly, I said. They move predictably. That afternoon, I reviewed her income statements. 2 jobs now. 1 full-time marketing position, 1 evening retail shift. No extravagance. No safety net from Dad. We built a repayment proposal that fit inside her actual numbers, not projections. Then I drafted a separate document. Voluntary assumption of partial liability by event coordinator. I printed 2 copies. That evening, we returned to the house. This time, no dinner table, no food, just paperwork laid flat under the overhead light. Dad stood at the counter when we walked in. What now? He asked. Lauren didn't look at me. She walked forward and placed the repayment outline on the counter. I'm restructuring it, she said steadily. He glanced over it. And this? He asked, picking up the second document. Optional, I said calmly. Formal partial liability acknowledgement. He laughed once, short, controlled. You're unbelievable. No, I replied. I'm consistent. Mom stood near the doorway, silent. You're trying to turn this into something legal, Dad said. It already is, I answered. Lauren swallowed. I can't carry it alone, she said quietly. You won't, he said automatically. On paper, I replied, not verbally. Silence again. That silence used to make me uncomfortable. Now I treat it like a tool. Dad set the document down without signing. I'm not taking on unnecessary exposure, he said. Lauren nodded once. That was another shift. Not emotional, structural. Okay, she said. Just that. No yelling, no tears. Okay. We left again without drama. In the car, she stared straight ahead. He's not going to sign, she said. I know, I replied. Then what? Then you execute the plan without him. She nodded slowly. Something about her posture was different now. Less dependent, more deliberate. Over the next week, she submitted the restructuring proposal. Began initial payments, adjusted her expenses. The lender responded in writing. Terms modified. Rates stabilized temporarily. Penalty growth halted as long as payments remained current. Not ideal, but contained. Dad stopped calling her daily. Mom stopped sending group messages. The house grew quieter in a different way. One evening, Lauren called me from her smaller apartment. I signed the revised schedule, she said. Good, I replied. I keep thinking about what I said to you, she added. I didn't answer immediately. You didn't deserve that, she said softly. I looked around my apartment. Clean counters, dim lamplight, order. No, I said gently. I didn't. We didn't need to unpack it fully. The numbers were already unpacked, and for the first time, She was carrying her own. Then I put the phone face down, and I let the quiet settle. About 2 weeks after the restructuring was approved, my dad asked to meet. Not a family dinner, not a holiday, just, come by for a quick conversation. I went in the late afternoon. The house was quieter than I remembered. No music playing, no food in the oven, just the low ticking of the wall clock in the hallway. Lauren was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a notepad in front of her. She had started writing things down lately. Dates, amounts, call times. I noticed. Dad stood near the window, arms crossed. Mom sat at the end of the table, hands folded, watching the room instead of anyone in it. "We need to clear the air," Dad said. I sat down slowly. "Okay." He looked at Lauren first. "You've made this bigger than it needed to be," he said. "The bank would have worked with us." "They are working with her," I said calmly, "under a formal structure." He ignored that. "You didn't need to involve outsiders." "Lenders are already involved," I replied. "That's how loans work." Lauren kept her eyes on the notepad. She didn't rush to defend herself. That was different. Dad shifted his attention to me. "You enjoy being right," he said. I shook my head slightly. "I prefer clarity." He exhaled sharply. "You embarrassed me in that office." I paused. "I didn't speak about you," I said. "I spoke about documents." He looked at me for a long second, searching for something to push against. There wasn't anything there. Lauren finally spoke. "I'm making the payments," she said quietly. "Twice a month." Mom looked surprised. "Twice?" "It reduces interest accumulation," Lauren said. Emily explained. I didn't correct her. It was her plan now. Dad leaned forward, palms flat on the counter. "This whole thing could have been handled internally," he said. "No," I replied evenly. "It couldn't." He didn't ask why. He knew. Because internal handling is how it started. Lauren slid a printed copy of the revised schedule across the table, dates highlighted, amounts circled. "I'm current," she said. He glanced at it without picking it up. "And you're not going to help?" he asked me directly. "I already did," I said. "Financially," he clarified. "No." The word didn't carry anger, it carried weight. Mom looked at me carefully. "You've changed," she said. I considered that. "No," I answered. I stopped shrinking. That settled in the room. Dad pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. "So what now?" he asked. "Now she completes the schedule," I said. "And you stop presenting risk as opportunity." He frowned slightly. "I was trying to create something for the family. With someone else's liability," I replied. Lauren didn't look at him when she spoke next. "You told me it was secured," she said quietly. "It was intended to be," he replied. "Intent doesn't override signature," I said. Silence again. It used to feel heavy. Now it felt like space. Dad finally picked up the revised schedule and scanned it. "How long?" he asked. 36 months under the current structure," Lauren said. He did the math in his head. "You'll be tied to this for 3 years." "Yes," she said. There was no panic in her voice now, just acceptance. Mom cleared her throat. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said, looking at me this time. I didn't respond right away. Meaning and outcome aren't the same thing. "I'm not discussing feelings," I said calmly. "I'm discussing structure." Dad leaned back in his chair. "You always make everything clinical." "No," I replied. "I make it clear." He didn't argue. Lauren closed her notepad. "I'm not asking for rescue," she said. "Just honesty." That was new too. Dad looked at her, then at me. "You both think I set this up deliberately." I didn't answer. Lauren didn't either. Silence can say enough. He stood up abruptly and walked toward the hallway. "We'll talk later," he muttered. He didn't slam anything. He just left the room. Mom stayed seated. "I didn't realize," she said softly. I looked at her. "You didn't look," I replied gently. She nodded once. Lauren gathered her papers and slipped them back into her folder. I have a shift tonight, she said. We stood up at the same time. On the way out, Mom touched my arm lightly. You're still my daughter, she said. I held her gaze for a second. I know, I replied. Outside, the air felt cooler than before. Lauren walked beside me to the driveway. I would have collapsed 2 weeks ago, she admitted. I know, I said. She unlocked her car. I'm not going to miss a payment, she added. I believe you, I replied. She paused before getting in. I meant what I said, about being sorry. I nodded once. I heard you. We didn't hug. We didn't dramatize reconciliation. We stood there for a moment in the quiet. Then she drove off. I got into my own car. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was walking into chaos. I was walking away from it. Then I drove home. The first official confirmation came in an email, subject line, revised payment plan accepted. I was at my kitchen counter when Lauren forwarded it to me. Morning light coming through the blinds, coffee cooling beside my laptop. I opened the attachment. Formal letterhead, updated balance, fixed repayment dates, interest stabilized as long as payments remained current. No additional penalties added. It wasn't forgiveness, it was containment. I replied with one sentence: stay consistent. Over the next month, she did. Every payment cleared on time. She sent me screenshots without commentary, not for approval, for record. I didn't praise her, I didn't coach her, I just reviewed. The lender sent monthly confirmations, balance slowly decreasing. No new warnings, no escalation letters. Paper creates peace when it moves in the right direction. About 6 weeks in, Dad tried to refinance quietly. Lauren found out because the lender requested updated financial disclosure tied to the original event account. His name surfaced again in internal notes. He called her that evening. I can fix this, he said. You can't refinance without assuming liability, she replied calmly. I could hear her voice through the phone when she called me after, not shaken, not angry, just steady. He backed off when I said that, she told me. Of course he did. Clarity reduces maneuvering room. 2 months later, the lender sent a formal notice confirming the account was no longer in active default status as long as scheduled payments continued. That line mattered. Not emotionally, legally. Lauren moved into a smaller apartment across town. Cheaper rent. No extra space. She sold a few things. Adjusted her budget. She stopped posting curated photos. She started tracking expenses in a spreadsheet. One afternoon, she came over with a folder. Inside were 3 things: payment confirmations, the original loan agreement, a printed copy of the personal guarantee. She laid them on my dining table. I keep these together now, she said. I nodded. That's good. She sat back and looked around my apartment. You really didn't need to come back that night, she said quietly. You could have ignored me. I thought about that. Maybe I could have. But ignoring something doesn't erase structure. It wasn't about you, I said. It was about the pattern. She understood that. Dad stopped hosting large events. No more ambitious projections. No more opportunities. The house felt quieter from what Lauren described. Mom called occasionally. Neutral conversations. Weather. Work. No revisiting the dinner table comment. No apology from them. None was requested. Because apologies without change are decoration. The real confirmation came at the end of the 3rd month. Lauren sent me a screenshot of her updated credit report. Score stable. No new negative marks. Account listed as active and paying as agreed. I leaned back in my chair when I saw it. That was the moment. Not dramatic, not triumphant, just stable. Later that week, Lauren and I met at a small coffee shop near her apartment. Wooden tables, soft indie music playing low overhead, the smell of espresso in the air. She looked tired but different, less reactive, more measured. I shouldn't have said what I said, she told me quietly. I stirred my tea once. You were honest, I replied. I was cruel, she corrected. There was no defense in her tone, just recognition. I didn't hug her. I didn't give a speech. I don't carry words anymore, I said calmly. I carry structure. She nodded. I'm learning, she said. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the kind that doesn't need filling. The truth wasn't revealed through confession, it was revealed through documents, through signatures, through numbers that didn't move unless someone moved them. Lauren wasn't ruined, she wasn't rescued, she was responsible, and she was handling it. That evening, I walked back into my apartment and placed her latest payment confirmation into a folder I kept in my desk. Not because she needed supervision, because I believe in records. Then I closed the drawer, and I let the quiet settle again. A few months later, my evenings became ordinary again. I would come home from work, set my keys in the same small ceramic bowl by the door, and wash one cup for tea. The apartment stayed quiet in a way that felt earned, not empty, just steady. Lauren's payments continued on schedule. First month, second, third. No missed dates, no late notices. She stopped sending screenshots every time. She didn't need to anymore. She knew how to read the statements herself. One evening, she called while I was folding laundry. Balance is down 12,000, she said. Not excited, just factual. That's good, I replied. I didn't think I could handle something like this, she admitted. You are, I said. There was a pause. I keep thinking about that night, she added. I don't, I said gently. And that was true, not because I forgot it, because it stopped defining me. Dad and I don't talk much now. When we do, it's neutral. Short conversations, weather, schedules, nothing financial. Mom has softened in small ways. She asked once if I wanted to come by for dinner. I told her I would think about it. Silence, I've learned, is not absence. It's decision. On a quiet Saturday morning, I sat at my desk and organized a few old files, insurance renewals, lease agreements, bank statements. I like knowing where things are. Structure makes rooms feel larger. As I closed the last folder, my phone buzzed. It wasn't Lauren. It was a former coworker, a woman named Teresa. We used to share an office years ago in Chicago before I moved back to Ohio. Her message was short. Hey, can I ask you something about a contract? I stared at the screen for a moment. Different person, different situation, same tone. I typed back one word. Sure. Because I've realized something. I wasn't the mistake. I was the one who reads the fine print. And sometimes that's uncomfortable for people. But it's useful. That night, I made tea again, sat on the couch, let the room settle into quiet. No revenge, no victory speech, just order. If this story felt familiar to you in any way, if you've ever been the quiet one at the table who noticed what others didn't, I'm glad you were here. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps more than you think. And I'm always curious. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. I like knowing where these stories travel. 2 other stories people often listen to next will be on your screen. You might find yourself in one of them. Until then, stay steady.